Right. And I'm Ingela, and I am in Oslo. And today it looks like we're going to have a nice spring, and that is something we all waiting for. But I think we will start this session. So I will just start to handing over the word to Martin.
Thank you. I I was not so prepared for that one, so I hand over to David. You can start.
Okay. So, hi everyone. It's nice to be here, and thanks for taking the time to listen to this talk today. And I want to start with asking you, how would you feel if you have to drive across a bridge, knowing that it's not statically safe? I mean, that would be strange, right? And in our Western culture, it's mandatory and I think absolutely useful that we have structural engineers making sure that we have statically safe bridges, and that's good so. But you know what's strange? That's metaphorically speaking exactly what happens often in organizations. And just as mathematics and physics is the tool for structural engineers, there's very, very profound theory for organizational developers and for organizational development. But sadly, I think almost nobody knows about that. And yeah, maybe I know what you are thinking right now, that, yeah, it's just another guy talking about theory. And you know what? I don't care about theory. That doesn't help me. I have day-to-day problems and I need solutions to my day-to-day problems. So don't talk about theory. And I feel you and I know how it feels like, but I think that that might be a misunderstanding. And what if that theory really can make the difference? And what if theory is not what we think it is? And then there is a very, very cool quote I like. It's from Kurt Lewin. And he said that there's nothing more practical than theory. And just to give you a short disclaimer, we will not bore you to death with just theory today. We have a lot of cool examples and a cool story for you. But I just want to start to say that theory is not the opposite of practice, because I think theory is a tool. It's like a quality gate for your thoughts. And in a more and more complex world, we need a reference point, and that might be theory, where we can challenge our ideas. And theory can give us this quality gate, and where we can sort out if our ideas make sense or not, and if we can just leave these ideas out because they don't make sense right from the beginning. And yeah, but we in our Western culture and in general in the agile scene, I say that we are so used to best practices and blueprints and solutions that we have unlearned to think on our own, and that we unlearned to start with a problem and to understand the problem. And that's why we have a disclaimer for you. You won't get any solutions today. You won't get best practices. You won't get blueprints today, but you will get a lot of food for thought. We want to show you some basics of this profound theory I talked about, so that you can build statically safe organizations, metaphorically speaking, of course. And we hope that you see things differently after this talk. And therefore, I brought somebody with me today.
Yes. Now it's my turn to talk, I think.
Nah, not you, Martin. I brought somebody else with me. Say hi to Weich. Weich is a manager. He's working in the financial industry, and we will follow him through a very regular day today. And he has some trainings, and we will follow him and see what we can learn. But wait, I think there's still something missing here. So Weich, suit up. Much better. Okay, then let's start.
Yes, now it's my turn. But maybe, David, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm David, and I'm located in Munich. And I'm working as an organizational developer and agile coach for almost 6 years now, for over 6 years. And yeah, I have a podcast, and I'm writing my first book right now. And I work with Martin for, I don't know, several years now. We gave a lot of talks together. And yeah, that's why I'm here today.
Yes, and my name is Martin, and I work at Agile People as an organizational change manager, supporting a lot of different organizations. And I like to draw. So White is my creation, or the pictures. But I get very good help from David in finding new, strange things and places to put him in. So what I want to start first here is to tell you a story. As David said, White is currently participating in a training, a leadership training. And we want to take you through some of the things that he's doing in this training. So the first thing he has encountered is that the trainer tells a story for him. And I want to take you with you on that story. It's a very interesting story, in fact. It was that I saw a man and a woman walking outside the other day. Okay. Let's pause here for a minute. These brief information pieces that I gave you, what information popped up in your head? I would like to ask you to participate here. How did a woman look like? How did a man look like? Where were they? Share your thoughts. What pictures popped up in your head?
I was thinking about an old couple. Of course, since I'm in Gothenburg, I was thinking about just in the urban city, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Did someone else have another picture?
I was at the Gothenburg train station, and two people rushing by to get to the train.
Thank you. Okay, so let's be continuing the story then. So they were actually out walking their pet. Okay, what pictures popped up in your head now? What pet was it? Did the man and woman change as I explained this?
It depends if they're walking a cat or a dog.
Well, you create those pictures and images in your head all the time as we give you stories. So now I actually remember that the man was actually a bodybuilder. What happened with your picture now?
The dog became so small and fluffy.
Yes.
It's so funny that happens all the time. I don't know why, but it happens all the time.
Stereotypes.
Yes.
So the key takeaways from this is everything that you get is information. You get information, but that doesn't, or data, but that doesn't mean that you are informed. Pieces of data is not information. It needs to be completed in some way or another. So all that information that you think that you have are subjective. It's based on your perception. And you can't know what others perceive. It's important to remember that. You are, what is it called, David? A closed system. You can open up yourself to information, but you create and maintain your information. So David, let's take the next exercise.
Yes, so the training continues, and now the trainer and Weitsch is invited to play a game. But in order to play the game, he needs 6 volunteers. So now I'm asking you if there are 6 volunteers. So disclaimer, it's nothing bad. You don't. It's just a little fun game. So it would be nice if we have 6 volunteers. Maybe you can just raise your hand if somebody wants to participate.
Erik, Jonas.
I can join.
Super.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anna. That's 3. Sure, I can join.
Yeah, I can join as well, but I don't find how to raise my hand in Zoom.
Okay, then I think we have Martin. Can you see that? So we have Martin, Anna, June,
and Martin,
another Martin, and
Eric.
And Eric. Okay, perfect. I think that's fine to start with. Okay, so thank you very much. Okay, so we play a little game. And first, we do a quick check-in. So please say your name and your favorite 4-digit number so that everybody knows something about you.
Okay, Martin Berg, 6284.
Thank you.
Eric, 1235.
Anna, 1320.
Martin, 7890.
And
Don't hear you, Jonas.
Yeah, Jones, we don't hear you. Okay.
Okay.
I think
If
that we
Yeah,
have everybody, right?
Except for Jonas.
Yeah, June's wrote his number in the chat. Yeah.
okay, sorry.
But unfortunately, we don't hear you. That's a little bit unfortunate, but let's try anyway. Okay, so now the goal of the game is just to pass an imaginary ball to another person, so one of the persons who raised their hands. But there are some rules. So you aren't allowed to talk, except you call somebody out. And in order to call somebody out and to pass the ball, you say their name and the 4-digit number. So whoever wants to start, just starts. So you say the name and the 4-digit number. Have fun.
Okay. Jones, 2525.
That was the easy one.
Tricking the system.
No, we can't hear you.
Yeah, we can't hear. Okay, Martin, do you have another? Can you remember another digit?
No.
I can jump in. I think
Yeah, okay.
we have 1, 2, 3, 5. But then I got a little bit if it was Eric or Martin. I think it might have been Eric. He's not.
Yes, it's me.
Perfect. Okay, very good. Eric, continue.
But I was so focused on having a smart 4-digit number, so I don't remember anyone else's number. So
Okay.
what is the lesson?
Okay, maybe we increased the complexity here. So last time we played it online on the stage, and it's a little bit easier. Can somebody else remember a digit?
I think someone said 1, 2, 3, 5, but I don't remember who it was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
it was me
Eric.
again.
That was
Yep.
Eric again. Yeah.
And what was it? 6790 or something like this. Someone finished with a 0 with high numbers.
7890, I guess.
7890 was me. Yes.
Yes, perfect. Okay. Martin, can you remember a number?
No.
Okay.
And Anna made a switch. It was like 2308. Like she went back with the third number, but that's all I can remember.
So usually what would happen now then, okay, it was a little bit strange now, but I think we can explain what should happen. So some of you might remember Eric's number because it was quite easy, maybe 1, 2, 3, 5. And what usually happens is that if you only have 2 numbers or 3 numbers you can remember, then the ball is always passing around with these 3 people, and everybody else doesn't get the ball because you don't remember the number. And it might be a little bit abstract now, and because we didn't see the pattern here, but what happens in organizations is that you have some kind of similar effect, and then I as a manager can go in here when you pass the ball and say, hey, don't be so mean, include maybe Junes in the game, or somebody else. But you can't because you don't know his number. Yeah. And I force you and I say, hey, why are you not including other people? Why don't you cooperate? But the rules of the game prevent you from passing the ball to the other people. And then some kind of pattern emerges. And what then happens is that we do a lot of work in analysis, and we try to find out the pattern and why these patterns emerged. But these kind of patterns are random. We can play the same game with different numbers and another pattern would form. So in a lot of situations in organizations where we have a lot of complexity in the system, patterns emerge, but these patterns are random. So it doesn't make sense to spend a lot of idea in analyzing these patterns. And the other key takeaway here is that the rules define the game, and the people behave coherent to these kind of rules. And if you want to change the behavior of the people, you need to change the rules first. It doesn't help to say as a manager, yeah, here, please include others and don't be so mean and collaborate, when your rules prevent that from happening. So not everything is predictable, and some phenomena are emergent. And full transparency, as we see, is utopia. So even if you know all the numbers, no one can contain and hold all the information in an organization. I mean, it's just, I don't know, how many people were we? 5 people? It's nothing. And just one information like the 4-digit number, and we didn't manage to even create transparency for that. Yeah. So yeah, and as I said, analysis is not very useful in this case. Okay, so we need to refine this part. I think, Martin, it worked better
On stage, yes.
on stage. Yes. Okay.
Wasn't the case with Jonas writing in the chat also interesting, because it was the only one that felt so accessible?
Yes, exactly.
Decent transparency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he altered the system.
Yeah.
In some way.
Okay, but let's continue. I hope the takeaway is still
yep.
obvious.
Let's continue.
Yes.
So now Weich is back at his office. He's a manager. He's in charge of a few teams. And he thinks about these learnings that he has had. Are things not predictable? What can I do to help to solve this in my domain where I have responsibility? And he thinks and he reflects and he sleeps and he thinks. And then he gets an idea. Okay, this is how I want to do it. I will try this. But actually, at the same time, in a completely different universe, another Weich has done the same journey, but they have come to the complete opposite decision. So as a chance now, we can have the possibility to follow both of them to see what happens when they try out their different approaches.
We're on quantum mechanics now, so we have a split universe.
That's the good thing with cartoons. You can do anything. So my Weich, the orange Weich, that's mine. the purple one, that's David's. But my Weich wants to try out trust. So he says to his team that he decided to put all his trust in them. He continues and he feels that, yep, you will solve it. I will make sure that you have all the power that you need to do your things, whatever you feel that they are. And as time continues, he tries his best, but coordination falls apart. And Weich himself does not feel that he has control of anything. He feels like he's walking towards a cliff, scared of falling down because he doesn't have any information of what is happening. in the other universe?
Yeah, in the other universe, we have another Weich, and he says, okay, then let's go with control. I just want to have control over everything. And yeah, so he's in a meeting, and he's surrounded with his employees, and he's saying, telling his colleagues what needs to be done. And he points out some responsibilities on a board. And yeah, he says, I'm taking control of every aspect now. And so then nothing can go wrong. And yeah, as you can see, the team members look a little bit overwhelmed. And yeah, then you see a very cluttered office and a lot of paperwork. And he's buried behind this paperwork because everyone is coming to him and ask him what his decisions are and what needs to be done, even for the simplest tasks. And yeah, so there's nothing left to do instead of micromanaging, and everyone is frustrated. And yeah, Weich came to the conclusion that he can't even breathe with all this kind of control. And in the background, of course, all his employees are walking around like zombies at some point because they don't thinking anymore. It's just like waiting for command and control. So yeah. Martin.
So we have an ambiguity here. We have trust and control. And in trust, when you include trust in an organization or a system, you reduce complexity. And you can deal with open futures. So you have multiple futures that you can control. But you have less control and less coordination and less overview, and could potentially make you blind. And one thing with trust is that's only applicable to humans. You can't trust an organization. You only trust the humans in the organization.
Yeah. And as you saw on the page before, that trust and control for us are two sides of the same coin. And especially in the Agile scene, I see where we have this value even of trust, that trust is always good. And yes, of course, it's good, but control is also good. And the funny thing is that control as well has the same function than trust. It reduces complexity because you make things very easy if you want to control everything. And also a very funny thing one can think about is that you need to control in order to have trust, because otherwise people game the system. That's why we have some kind of text control. That's why we have speed controls on the street. If you would know that you don't have any kind of speed controls, you would just break the rules all the time because you know that there is no control system. So trust and control are two sides of the same coin. On the other hand, the negative side of control is that it's, of course, very expensive, as you saw in the cartoon. It takes a lot of time. And of course, it restricts autonomy because in the worst case, you get just zombies because people stop thinking. Yeah, so to sum up, trust gets you more trust, control gets you more control. It's a vicious or a very good cycle, as ever you want to see it. But on the other hand, trust makes you blind and control makes you weak. So you are screwed both ways. And both are neither right or wrong. They need to coexist, and therefore it needs to be a mess.
The next thing that Weich tries is to connect. So include. The team is getting bigger. There are 16 members now, but he says, no, let's not split the team. We need to work closely in order to be able to continue our work. We need to have a strong bond between ourselves. So he includes everyone, and they should take decisions to collaboratively together, but that makes people feeling that they are distant from the decisions because they're so big crowd. And sometimes people start to talk and people will feel that they are left outside. So decision-making slows down and people feel that they are disconnected from each other, even though the intention was to connect people. And in the other universe?
In the other universe, Weich decides, well, to improve efficiency, we'll split into smaller teams. We are too big. Now we will divide the teams in smaller teams. And employees are working in their isolated small cubicles or in silos, as we say, with minimal interaction. Everybody is doing their thing, very focused on their kind of work. And then at some point, one of the employees says, oh, please mute. Thank you. And at some point, one employee said that, well, okay, I had no idea that the other team is also working on that very similar project. Maybe we should talk to each other. We do the same things twice here. And yeah, Vach is trying to manage and coordinate all the numerous small teams, but he is very, very overwhelmed again. And he starts to feel like he will need to employ more managers in order to manage all these different teams.
Yeah. So again, two sides of the same coin. Connect. You increase complexity by connecting. You increase information density, which could be a good thing, of course. But at the same time, you get less efficient and resourcefulness goes down.
Yeah. And on the other hand, if you separate the teams, you reduce complexity in a subsystem, which is also very good. It can be a really good function and a use case. But on the downside, you increase complexity for the organization. So you cannot decrease complexity at some point because the complexity is as it is. And you can just decide to ignore some of the complexity, but then you increase it at some point, at some other point in the organization. That's why Vach needed to employ more managers to coordinate all the different teams. You may get parallel processes, of course. That's another downside. Mm-hmm. And simplifying also means ignoring. So when you ignore some kind of complexity, it means also that you get blind at these points. So also here, it needs to be a mess. The more you separate organizational processes, the more you decrease complexity for subsystems, but increase complexity in the organizational level. And the more you connect processes, the more complexity you need to handle them, and group separate on the informal level. Again, both is neither right nor wrong. They need to coexist, and therefore it needs to be a mess.
On final ambiguity before we go into some learnings. So keep. So the organization has implemented a new strategy, and Vach is presenting that to the team. They say that our current model is not working and we need to reorganize in order to change to our new strategy. But the team instantly reacts negatively because they feel that this change is unnecessary. We need to keep what we have. It has been working for a very long time. We have a good process. We have a good structure. But Vach persists and says we need to adapt and make changes. But then team members goes in and says, but all the methods that we have, they have served us well for a long time. And if we change now, it's very risky. And it's unnecessary. We don't need it. And eventually, in the last picture there, Vach is persisting. We should change. We need to change. But the team member starts to feel, yeah, he will tire soon. We'll continue with what we are doing. Soon the manager will get tired of talking about this change and he will suffice to our approach. We need to keep what we have because it's been working for a long time. And in the other universe,
Vach decided to implement a new strategy, and Vach is presenting the new strategy to the new team, and everyone is super enthusiastic. And yeah, so they agree that our current model is not working anymore, and we need to reorganize and we need to change. And well, the team members enthusiastically respond, well, we're ready for change. Let's embrace. We delete everything. Let's just go with the new. And the team members immediately start implementing the new strategy, erasing whiteboards filled with very good and useful information with old practices. And at some point, Vach looks at the discarded whiteboards and bins and realized that the team has unlearned all the old practices. but forgotten to preserve them, what in fact served them for a very, very long time.
So we have two ambiguities again. The keep, because the keep's purpose is to help to stabilize and connect you to the past, create an identification for you. But it also reduces complexity because we have processes and structures that helps us progressing. The negative side, of course, is that it slows you down in change. It's harder to change things if you are very structured and want to keep the old things. But you get a very stable pattern. And in some ways, in this complexity world, maybe we don't want to have two stable patterns. Doesn't suffice and support you in the way that we want.
The good thing when you learn new things is that it's obviously necessary to adapt to the changing environment. You need to adapt and learn new things. And of course, it's very time sensitive, so you don't know when you need to learn new things. But of course, it can be very powerful to be able as organization to learn when it's necessary. But on the other hand, it's very difficult to unlearn old things because they served you in the past. And what's often gets neglected is that it threatens the identity. It's a fear. So usually it's not about the arguments for the new, but people fear what they become if the old paradigm, is no longer valid anymore. That's often neglected in change projects. Yeah. So the more you change, the more you learn new things, the more people hold on to keep to their old beliefs. I think everybody can relate to that. We are not free from that. And the more you keep, the more you need to change. That's a paradox. And both are, again, neither right or wrong. They need to coexist, and therefore it needs to be a mess.
Okay. So some time has progressed for Weich now, and he has actually have some time to reflect, okay, what the heck has happened? What did I learn? And we will help him. We will help him to actually meet the friend. He will meet his parallel pal in the parallel universe so that they can reflect on the learnings that they've done together. So you should always assume that the person that you're listening to might know something that you don't. So let's go into that. And they discuss, and then they reflect, and they come to 3 different insights. So I will talk you through them briefly now, because we want to have some time for you to have questions also. So the first one is the communication ecosystem. So an organization is communication. And they need to be structured in order to satisfy a need or a market need, for instance. That's the purpose of the organization. And the communication is the thing that helps that organization to actually succeed with that. And another insight is that the organization do not consist of people, but communication. People are just prerequisites. They are players in the game, like in the ball game. But the communication is the thing that actually makes it happen. Decisions is also an important structure. So, of course, we need to take decisions all the time in an organization. That is actually what makes the organization move forward. But remember, all the decisions that take are based on our perception of how we experience things. You remember the old woman walking, suddenly turning into a bodybuilder? That's our perceptions of things. So let's move on to perceptions. So we perceive things differently, and we need to remember that. And it's also important to remember that dissent and conflicts is the norm, and we need to embrace that. that behavior in our way of being is a good thing, because if we dissent to things, there's a clue in something there. It's something that we can work with. So an organization therefore needs a structure to make consent more likely. It's easier for us to move forward if we all agree on where we want to go. You can call it alignment, but you can achieve alignment in many different ways, of course. So all of this creates some sort of mess that we need to organize ourselves within. So we need to play with those tensions that is created by this mess. And we can approach the first principle, which is that you need to play with tension. So it's not theory or practice. It's not profit or purpose. It's not agile or waterfall. It's actually both. They need to coexist because all of them have potential values. So we need to be better at embracing a both and approach to things. And an example here, for instance, is what can I say? Embracing, agile and waterfall, that's where I am. Control and structure connected to freedom to move. We need both of them, as we have seen here. Principle number 2, descriptive self-awareness. This is the place that I love to be. I love to help an organization to talk to itself, using the power of the humans within the organization so that we start to open up and reflect together and see each other. I work a lot with trying to help an organization to network in community practices and all those things. One important tool that I'm using is called liberating structures, which has the power of actually helping an organization to talk to itself. So you liberate the organization through facilitation. And by doing that, you can create an organization that has a descriptive self-awareness. And if we have that, we have a better shared perspective of how the organization should work. And therefore, it's easier for us to take shared decisions and agree with them. Right. So that was 2 principles: play with tension and descriptive self-awareness. What's the third principle, David?
Yes, so the third principle, and that's what we want to close with, is more or less a summary of all we want to, what we have shown you in this talk today. So basically, we can say that do not ask what's right or wrong, but what do you decide for the time being? Because you cannot do the right decision. You don't know if it was the right decision because you need to see how time progresses. And with all the different ambiguities we've shown you, and that's just a little glimpse into all the different ambiguities we have in organizations, you need to balance them. It's not either or, it's both and more, as Martin stated. And as you can see here very clearly and nicely in this picture, if you go too far in the extremes, you will get consequences you don't want to. And yeah, you need to find a balance. And that's just possible with communication and with talking with each other and using this descriptive self-awareness Martin was talking about. If the organization can reflect about itself, if you want to see it like this. Maybe to be even a little bit more clear here, what we are claiming is that we don't see organizations as machines anymore, but as a living ecosystem. We stated that as well. And if you see an organization as a living ecosystem, you can think of them as having some kind of personality, and you can define and characterize this personality with these kind of ambiguities. And you need to map them. And sometimes you need more trust, and sometimes you need more control. Sometimes you need more alignment. Sometimes you need more autonomy. Sometimes you need to learn new things. Sometimes you need to keep things. It's not this black and white. It's more playing in the tension and playing in the different colors. In the different colors of gray, if you want. Yeah. So, and let's close with a quote. It's from Oscar Wilde, and he said, "Without order, nothing can exist. Without chaos, nothing can evolve." It's an ambiguity again. And nowadays, people know the price of everything and the value of nothing. Thank you very much for your attention. And now we're very happy to answer some questions if we can.
I have a question.
Please, Cindy, please.
Right. So a reflection of knowing of this, like sometimes you need to learn, sometimes you need to keep, sometimes you need to adapt, sometimes you need to trust and all that. That kind of tells me that the talent of tomorrow is knowing when to adapt or when to keep, when to trust and when to control. And that, how do you learn that skill? What do you do to be able to do that?
No, for me, the best way to do this is navigating complexity. So probe, sense, respond. So you test. You need to have safe to fail experiments in some way. You navigate by testing and see, okay, how does things react when I do this? What do I want to achieve? So do I have a purpose of what I want to reach? If I have that, then I can start to navigate towards that. But you can only navigate there. You can't decide the full path all the way. So you need to have some sort of. So I think one of the most important thing is to have what is it called? Scientific thinking, you can call it. So you have a hypothesis-driven approach to what you want to achieve.
And on top of that, maybe just to give my thoughts to that, Martin said that this is what we mean with the principle descriptive self-awareness. You can also say that you should do retros regularly, but it's even more than that. It's not just what went good, what went wrong, and what do we change in the future. It's more that you really see the organization as an abstract thing, and everyone in the organization looks at your own organization. How do we behave? Is our organization healthy right now or not? What some kind of characteristics is our organization evolving right now? Do we want to foster this kind of behavior we see right now or not? Are we aligned correctly? Do we balance our polarities, our ambiguities here correctly or not? So you need this kind of structures in your organization where you talk about if you're organized correctly, if you need to adapt. Do we need more trust right now? Do we need more control right now? And I don't know, I cannot say that you need to do that every 4 weeks or if it's enough if you do that once a year. It depends on the organization and on the market. But that's what we mean with descriptive self-awareness.
Right.
So I think Eric was next.
Yeah.
Yeah. My reflection was kind of around the same thing. We've been working like Agile with the product development for 10 years, but when we talk about working Agile with the organizational development, I mean, people get really, they don't like being experimented with. It's interesting. We work with this method developing our products, but when we talk about experimenting or hacking the organization, it's a long journey just to get that accepted. So it was just a reflection that I think I think the whole idea of talking about it as just raising these ambiguities and talking about it as not being neither right or wrong, but an ongoing process. I think we need to align on that before we can just start adapting the same principles directly on the organization. That has been a clear wake-up call for us, for me, in a big organization. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one approach that you can have is to, as David also talked, descriptive self-awareness, that you help the organization to talk to itself, and by that accepting change and discussion, because accepting or even proposing change within the organization. So if you want to identify different polarities that is creating problems within your organization, you can use the liberating structure. What is it called now? I don't remember. There's a liberating, I can look it up and send it in the link, but there's a liberating structure that helps you to identify polarities and how you can approach them. There's also a tool called polarity mapping, which is very good to complement with, so that you can start to think about, okay, if we are focusing very much on this, what are the downsides of this? Okay, then there's probably a polarity that can balance that. So control and freedom. Both of them are, so they balance each other out, and you can get a much better value from that. Okay, next question maybe. Of course. Hook.
Yeah. How do we deal with because in the beginning you said something about patterns or random. So how do we do with organization learning and retrospective and so on? So how do we have, what kind of approach should we have that?
I think what's different to this, what's important to distinguish here is that if you have a complicated or complex problem, I mean, usually both terms will be used simultaneously, but complicated things are things where you have cause and effect relationships. And then it's of course totally valid to analyze things and to see and to find patterns. And every organization has these kind of structured approaches and these kind of complicated problems. But you have also parts where you have complex problems. And in complex problems, you don't have this linear cause and effect relationships. And there it's very difficult. It can be that you have stable patterns, but you need to approach them differently because you don't know if they are stable or if they just emerged randomly.
Yeah,
that's why
they can be perceived as stable, but they are in fact complex, because if something is changed, then they don't repeat in the same way that they have done.
Yeah, exactly. So the question would be some kind of heuristic. If you can find cause and effect relationships over and over again, then if you get the same results over and over again, then you have a complicated system. And if not, so if you're not able, or if you came to paradox conclusions given the same data, so that you can have two different hypotheses over the outcome, then it's complex. My favorite example is football. So you can analyze as much as you want. You won't get the result of the football game in advance. You need to wait until the game is over, and then you have the result. And you can create different hypotheses if team A or team B will win the game. So you have contradictory hypothesis over the same situation given the same data. Then you have a complex problem. Yeah. And yeah, then you need to be aware that some patterns might be just random, and then you approach them differently by probe sense response. So you need to interact with the system and see if you can find stable cause and effect relationships. Does it answer your question?
Yes, somewhat, but yeah, because let's say we have a retrospective in the Agile framework and so on. So it's more like, do we actually learn something last time, and it tends to be that we repeat ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you run retrospectives in teams, some things are very easy to attend to. But when you have done a few retrospectives and you start to see that this pops up again and again and again, then it's probably a complex problem that you need to attend to in a different way. It's not just actions. You need to probe, sense, respond in order to start to navigate away from that. But if it's a simple thing to solve, like starting to do something in a specific way, that could be complex because part of the system is blocking you from actually doing that. It could be behaviors or habitual behaviors or other things. But a good way to identify those type of complex problems or systemic problems that you can't affect by yourself, but you need to attend to in a larger context. It could be that they are repeating, so repetitive problems that are reappearing again and again and again in retrospective. That could be a clue for you to start to approach them in a different way. And then it's good to find a hypothesis and start to experiment towards a goal that you want to achieve, instead of just finding an action and then do it. If you have a hypothesis, you have a possibility to learn. You form a hypothesis by saying, okay, this is what we want to achieve. We think so. You write it down, and then you set a time for when you want to have achieved it, not too far away. And then you go back and reflect, okay, what actually happened and what did we expect? Because in the between of those is the learning. So we are very good at, our brain is very good at fooling ourselves. So if we don't, my experience is that if I don't write what I expected down, I will fool myself to think that I actually expected the thing that actually happened and not the things that I was thinking. So if I write it down, it's much easier for me to actually see the learning.
Yeah, thanks.
We have a question in the chat, Martin. I think that's a hard one. Let's see. Richard asked, what do you think are the 3 most important skills leaders need to improve to handle this situation, quote unquote? So I might start.
Yes, please.
I think, yeah, it's a tough one. I don't know. I think so. The first things that pop in my mind are self-reflection. I think that's very important. And why? Because I think it's very easy to get absorbed in all the different fields you need to pay attention in organizations, in these ambiguities, and to have the capacity to abstract and to have some distance to all the different things going on in the organization is, I think, very, very helpful. Then the second skill, something about knowledge about system theory and how systems work. What I meant is that we get the shift from realizing that organizations are not machines but living ecosystems, and if you accept this, then you approach organizational change very, very differently. So that are 2 things that popped in my mind. I don't know, Martin, what would you
The third
add?
I'm thinking about is people-centric. So you need to be aware that you are a human yourself. You're fallible yourself as a leader, and others are also. And that you have your perception of how the world looks like, and others have their. And all those people are the one that is populating that organization that you're in. So if you are more self-aware, as you said, David, and being part of yourself, it's much easier for you to meet others and see their perspective. So I think that is one thing that is important, or super important for a leader to have. No more questions? How to promote change in the organization if you're not 100% sure about the outcome? Wow. You are never 100% sure. But yes, some leaders feel that they need to have 100% understanding that this will be the outcome. But if we are not able to fail as an organization, then we will have very big problems, I think. But we need to create intelligent failures, as Amy Edmondson is calling it. So you create a failure that is small enough for the organization. Some organizations can do a big gamble. This is what we want. We can fail in this manner. When I go out and invest in things, I have a very limited failure balance. But if you do intelligent failure, that's by doing a hypothesis. This is what we want to achieve. This is what we think will happen. And then we gamble on that. But we need to do that based on research. So we need to have data that sort of indicates that this is likely event that will take place. But we
Mm.
can't be sure for sure, of course, because it's complex.
Martin, I was thinking maybe to quote Dave Snowden here again.
Mhm.
He's always saying that it's maybe, especially in complex systems, it's not about outcome, but more about a sense of direction. So maybe it's not even the right approach to define outcomes, but just to say, okay, we think that this might be the right direction and we go the first steps in this direction, then we see what happens. It giving us the chance to learn going this way, but also saying, okay, that's not the way, and we go in another direction from where we are then. The thinking about outcome is, again, very mechanistic, I think, because you can say, I want to be there in this state in 2 or 3 years. Yeah, but it's a very philosophical discussion, I think, because I'm still a fan of outcomes, because you need to. So then the question would be, how would you define direction? So that can also be an outcome. But yeah, anyway, so that was just
I
my
can
thinking.
recommend an interesting article. It's called Colors of Change. We can put it in the show note later on when we put it on YouTube. It talks about five different approaches to change, and based on how you view your world, you have different approaches, and all of them works. It's the matter of what type of change you want to achieve. 100% things are probably in the complicated at most, or in the clear if we're using the domain, the Kinevin model. I see that times is progressing here, so maybe we should stop here, or what do you think?
Yeah, the clock is ticking. Even it's really interesting to listen to both of you. So I just want to say a big thank you to David and Martin for this session. I love the title, and we always learn something new. So thank you, and we will have a new meetup coming up. So we hope to see you there soon again.
Thanks for having us and for doing this experiment. So first time remote session here, and yeah, was fun. And thanks for the very good questions. It was very interesting.
Yes, thank you.